Call to order the Wheeling Plan Commission for Thursday, August 9th, 2012. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Commissioner Burns. Here. Commissioner Dorbin.
Here.
Commissioner Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner Fotto, I'm here. Commissioner Schaaf.
Here.
Commissioner Stylen.
Here.
And Chairman Maloney.
Here. Mr. Jennings, are there any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes this evening.
Citizens' concerns and comment. Is there any citizen in the audience who'd like to make a comment? There are none. I will go on to consent items. Docket number SCBA 12-38, Salon Centric, 536 West Dundee Road, appearance approval of a wall sign. Docket number SCBA 1239, Marco's Pizza, 1990 South Wolf Road, appearance approval of a freestanding sign. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to move, Mr. Chairman, with a comment.
Go ahead.
For Salon Sienna, I'm a little bit concerned that they have a white lettering with a very white-oriented background. I was wondering if that the trim piece around the front of the letters, if they needed to make that a little bit wider in order to highlight the lettering, would that be acceptable? I know that they're a nationwide company and that this is their standard logo, but I was just wondering if we might be able to do something to allow them a little freedom if the background is not, if the colors are relatively the same.
Are those, in reality, is that color not more adobe looking, or is it white?
It's pretty close to white. Let me see if I can open this up to where I can view the details. We had probably 8 pages of details with this. We went with the one that was closest to the appearance of the sign, so I may have a drawing where we can tell you how big the trim cap is on that. Let me see.
I'm just wondering if we could grant you a little leeway in allowing them to
You see the trim cap size on that anywhere? If the idea is to just have a condition that allows them to increase the size of the trim cap, we can certainly write it that way.
Okay.
Sure.
Enough. Second?
So moved. Or second.
Call the roll.
Motion was made by Commissioner Stylen, seconded by Commissioner Raffato. Commissioner Stylen.
Yes.
Commissioner Raffato, I vote yes. Commissioner Burns.
Yes.
Commissioner Dorbin.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Schaaf.
Yes.
And Chairman Maloney.
Yes. Items for review, docket number PC 12-21, Handy Foil Corporation, 135 East Hintz Road, minor site plan and appearance approval of parking expansion. Mr. Jennings?
Thank you. If you could come forward, please. There's one note that, one staff note that is not in the staff report that we do need to go over very briefly before the petitioner begins any sort of presentation. During the engineering review of the proposed drawings and the fire department review, we determined that the existing site plan does not have a parking setback variation. So technically expanding the parking in this location does need to be addressed in the code. We have in the works, though, a new administrative variation process so that by the time these drawings progress to construction, it's very possible that you could be complete on an administrative variation. Shouldn't have a major impact. We just need to add a condition of approval to this particular item so that there is a indication that additional step is going to be required.
So, okay, just so I understand, you're saying the parking setback has changed?
The parking setback is 10 feet minimum required by the code. The existing parking does not have a variation. I think the road was widened at some point.
Oh, okay.
So the existing parking does not have a variation. We would need a variation to expand the nonconformity in this case. So kind of a technicality, but we do need to make sure that we cover it.
Okay. Anything else?
The fire department did review, and as expected, they want to ensure that the final design provides minimum clearance around the fire hydrant. So they are flexible on how you go about doing that, but they did confirm that the drawing as shown doesn't seem to provide the minimum clearance near the fire hydrant.
For the record, sir, could you, into the microphone, give your name and address?
My name is Jeremy Hall. I'm from Partners in Design Architects. Our address is 2610 Lake Cook Road, Suite 280, Riverwoods, Illinois.
Thank you. You want to make your case?
I'm here representing Handy Foil. What we've submitted is for approval was approved roughly 10 years ago, and it was never built. And they're looking to expand some parking just to get them a few more parking up in the front near their office. So we went through the city to see if it was approved through the engineering, and it hadn't been. So they directed us back to planning to double check, and I guess in 02, I believe it was, Andrew. I think we talked about that a little bit. That it was approved then, and they requested that we resubmit for a minor site plan review. So we haven't changed anything design-wise from the previously approved version. So they're looking to extend their existing parking and add 10 spaces and expand some that are short now, just kind of make them so that they meet the current code lengths.
Commissioner Dorband?
Thank you. From that time to now, you really haven't changed anything, is that right?
No.
So the trees that were planned originally are going to still be there? Am I right?
The trees planned to be
I think,
put in,
if I remember correctly, weren't there some trees to be planted in some of the islands?
The landscaping plan we provided is new, because they requested a landscaping plan. I guess when it was submitted in 02 by a different architect, not we.
Okay,
we weren't
so
involved. We weren't involved in that one, so
right.
we have found these plans from the civil engineer who did the design at that time, and it's the same one as who's provided
So
these
you're
drawings.
not going to have them, is there, or you
What we've
are
submitted
gonna
as
have
far as landscaping, that's
Yeah.
what we were proposing to put in.
You are, okay.
Yes.
Because I thought I had remembered that. And it appears that the only thing the fire department had a question about is you're going to, they're going to move a fire hydrant, is that right?
No.
Are they going to move it, or are they, how it?
The parking gets a little bit closer to the fire hydrant than it is right now. So the fire department was flexible on how they provide. I believe they had a 5-foot minimum clearance of a radius around the hydrant. One of the spaces gets a little too close to it. So the fire department said, you can take a little bit off of the next island to achieve it, just to shift it over, or, worst case scenario, you drop one parking space completely. So they didn't want to dictate how it would be done, just that it had to be done.
Okay, because the way it's written here, it still should be reconfigured, so I wasn't sure if they were moving it or just reconfiguring.
Right. No, we're not moving the
spaces.
hydrant.
Okay.
The hydrant
Okay.
The hydrant's existing, so the island that it's sitting in is to keep it there. So we're not
Okay.
moving that hydrant.
That's my only questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Stylen?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Andrew, I'm a little concerned about the setback criteria here. if they were to need a variation for what they have today, do you know what that setback variation would be approximately?
I think at the east end of what they have today, it's probably 3 feet off the property line. And the proposed is, if you continue that straight line, the proposed probably ends up in the neighborhood of 2 feet.
Plus or minus, yeah.
So,
somewhere, right?
the property line is the dark line here, and the parking lot ends here. And they've got this, they just kind of, if you continue the straight line, they get a little bit closer. So the proposed administrative variation process appears to cover this. It would be the guinea pig for that, that process.
I hear what you're saying, but you didn't answer my question, right? For the property as it exists today, what kind of variation setback would they?
Reducing from 10 feet required
Down
to about 3 feet.
3 feet, and with their addition, they would reduce it further down to
It looks
1 feet,
maybe
1 foot?
foot and a half, 2 feet. It's not scaled out on this. I mean, it's a scale drawing, but it's not dimensioned out based on that.
It's probably approximately 2 feet or so at the worst case there.
Well, I'm just wondering, because we're, getting a variation, even if it's an administrative variation, if we might be able to compensate with a little more landscaping or something that might be a little more robust than what they have planned. I don't know how tall the shrubs that they're planning on putting across or in front of the new parking space is. Do you know?
The proposal is to match what's there. There's a line of hedges and shrubs in front of the existing parking. The proposal is just to continue that across.
Do you know how tall that currently is?
Those, look, I mean, the picture there, they're probably 4 feet, maybe 5 feet. There's a little berming there, so they're probably in that vicinity.
And the new ones that you plant will be that size at planting time or mature to that size 5 or 10 years from now? And I guess that's...
Yeah, I don't know that off the top of my head.
I think that would be a fair trade-off for a variation in setback to ask you to put in shrubs that might be a little bit larger than...
At primary planting. Okay.
So that would be my recommendation, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you.
Schaaf.
Thank you, Norm.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 5 existing trees, right? That's what you're taking out? And there's nowhere else on the property you could put those?
To relocate those trees?
Even if it's possible, or just put some new ones in? I don't know, it's just something that may have been considered. I understand why they have to be removed.
Yeah, I mean, the issue with that is there's very little land,
Right.
elsewhere on their property to put the trees. That's the issue they're running with the parking.
Yeah, and really, I have no problem with that, especially if they're very mature trees. If they were young trees, then I would think that you would want to relocate or move those somewhere. That's it for me. Thank you.
Commissioner Ruffano.
Thank you. Actually, I agree with Commissioner Steilen. And to take that a little bit further, you've got a very nice corner there at the corner of Chaddock and Hintz that is, could use some color at the corner there, working in with the trees that are there. I understand taking them out, and I understand adding the viburnums to shield the lights, and I agree with Commissioner Steilen that they should be. I'm not certain we can get something as mature as that, but nothing small. And you know, that corner could use some work. Because you are taking out 5 mature trees. I don't have a problem with that, but I would like for staff to work with them to possibly, I don't think you can add trees there, but to add, you know, a planting area at the corner there to make that corner a little bit nicer looking would be great. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to clarify, this would be the area that's sort of northwest of the depression, right at the corner?
Yep. If it can be added, because I went by there, but I'm not sure if, yeah, I know there's that depression, but if it can be added to the corner, that'd be great. If not, I completely understand.
Okay, well, we can work with
Yeah, right, exactly. Thank you.
Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you. I would also agree with the other commissioners on the landscaping could be cleaned up and beefed up a little bit on that corner. Other than that, I have no problems with this.
Okay, Commissioner Burns.
Thank you. You are replacing 2 of the 5 trees. There's plans to plant 2 honey locusts.
Yes.
Improving the other landscaping where you can would be great. Those are my comments, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other comments? Can you read the conditions?
Sure. Number 1 has been reworded slightly. That the parking stalls adjacent to the existing fire hydrant shall be reconfigured to provide the minimum required clearance. Number 2, that the setback as shown be granted a variation prior to construction. And number 3, the petitioner work with staff to add landscaping at the northwest corner of the site if possible.
You have to think about the height of the bushes.
Is there a
The addition of the, what, hedges, I think?
The viburnums that they,
minimum, is there a suggested minimum?
How about consistent with the existing hedges?
yep.
I don't know that you'd be able to find them that large.
Right.
Okay.
I think they're shown at, we flip back to that page, 36 inches. So they'd be planted at 3 feet right now. So there may be, you may be maxing out where you can.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, it comes in at-
Well, they can always look.
Okay.
I mean, just get something that's, you know, larger gallon size. I don't know how they measure.
Right.
Something that can catch up in a season or so.
Yep.
That the proposed viburnum be increased to the maximum available size.
That's good.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Motion made and seconded. Please call the roll.
Motion was made by Commissioner Fado, seconded by Commissioner Johnson. Commissioner Fado, I vote yes. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Stylen?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaaf?
Yes.
Commissioner Dorban?
Yes?
Commissioner Burns?
Yes.
And Chairman Maloney.
Yes. Have some papers for you to sign, and we're all set.
Okay, thank you.
Good luck.
Thinking about it. Any action down there? Okay.
Sir, if you go down there, she'll have you sign them. You have a rainbow.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I don't see it.
The last window.
No. Still can't see it. All right, seen one, you've seen it one.
Bill's just seen things.
Yeah, no, he is.
Glasses are smeared or something.
Yeah, Royal.
We'll be in touch with you. The new process for administrative variations is on a docket.
Thank you.
It's proposed to go in front of the board on August 20th. So it's got a sort of streamlined process for minor variations like this. We can describe it to you, and then you can wait and see. Sure.
Okay. Approval of the minutes of July 26th.
So moved?
Is that the one with the
with a
correction?
correction.
Go ahead.
At the end, it says that Commissioner Rafato was complaining about the parking lot at Dundee and Lexington. I believe that should be Dundee and Huntington.
Thank you. You're right.
Any other corrections?
I think the version we have printed says that. Let me just double check. Yes, we got it right on the printed version. Thank you.
So, Lexington says what?
We have a motion and a second, right?
Voice vote.
Voice vote.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Other business, discussion of next steps regarding streetscape subcommittee recommendations. Mr. Jennings.
Before we get into the discussion, we had a request to modify the Plan Commission schedule, and I wanted to put the schedule up with some questions so we can try to figure this out. We have there's two things that are coming up. One is scheduled and one is requested. If you take a look here, there's a joint workshop scheduled with the board on August 30th. That meeting, which will be down at Public Works, you'll get the official notice and agenda and materials. But that is being scheduled. You've got the following week a request for a special meeting on September 6th. That would be a regular voting meeting, not a workshop meeting. The purpose of that meeting is the petitioner who is attempting to set up a public hearing for that night is the contract purchaser of the vacant claim jumper building. They have a due diligence period on their contract that ends, if you look at the calendar here, which is September 21st. According to the regular schedule, if they go to the Plan Commission hearing on the 13th, they would go to the board for a review in October. The turnaround for Monday the 17th, which is the last voting meeting, is not possible typically. So what they're requesting to ensure that they have an opportunity to go through their full public hearing process prior to their contract expiring is a special meeting. Two quick notes about that. The property is bank owned. In a normal situation, it's a little bit easier to go back to a seller and negotiate a new date based on a hearing schedule like this. A bank-owned property, sometimes more difficult. We talked to the contract purchaser. They believe in this case it will be difficult to negotiate out. That building, as you know, has been vacant for some time, so the special use has expired. And part of the reason that building, despite its location, is vacant, we believe, is related to the size. It's a very large restaurant building, and it seems just the universe of potential users is small. So while this is not a regularly scheduled meeting, they are requesting, out of fear that their contract might not be extended, they're requesting this accommodation. If that were to happen, knowing, of course, that we're looking right now at potentially many weeks in a row of meetings, which is somewhat unusual for the commission, we would discuss canceling another meeting and moving the items to the new meeting so that you wouldn't have a run of so many meetings in a row. Are there any questions about what they're...
Is anyone not going to be here for that date?
For that which date?
The 6th of September?
I will not be here.
Nor will I. We still have a quorum.
With the 5 that would be remaining, we would have a quorum.
We would have a quorum with 4, wouldn't we?
We'd have a quorum with 4.
Why isn't the, may I ask a separate question? Why isn't the 23rd an option for them to come before the Plan Commission?
The time period for setting up a public hearing, we would have to put the notice in the newspaper. It would have had to appear in the newspaper yesterday, which meant we would have had to send it to the newspaper on August 3rd.
Is the 30th a for sure?
The joint workshop?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I suggest that the meeting be held. I mean, that's a big piece of property. If there's a, assuming everything else is all right, I'd like to see them come in. Don't even know who they are, but, it's a huge building. It's got a big kitchen in it. I don't think it could be used for much more than what it is.
The alternative, if they don't do it, is to take their chances and try. Like I said, they felt, based on the circumstances, that it would be unlikely to get. They would not have asked if they had a good feeling, but they felt like it would be unlikely to convince the bank.
Mr. Chairman, I personally don't have any problem with trying to accommodate their needs.
Okay. Commissioner Shaft, how about you?
I have no problem.
Commissioner Rufato?
Nope, no problem.
Johnson?
No problem.
Burns?
No problem, and in fact, since you and Commissioner Dorban won't be here, I don't know what's on the agenda or what's going to be on the agenda for September 13th. But I'm not opposed to having a special meeting for that restaurant and still keeping the 13th as the regular Plan Commission date, so Commissioner Dorban and Chairman Maloney could be there for the rest of the agenda.
So anyway, we settled that the 6th will be a special meeting for the claim jumper property.
I don't think you're supposed to give that name.
Yeah.
Okay. How did you?
And what we can do, if we get to the 13th, or if we get to around the 5th and the business is light for the 13th, we can make the call at that point and see, just to reduce the meeting load. But we will contact them. We will not set that meeting in stone until we have their application complete and in hand. Once we have that, we'll set everything up.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Just a comment on the upcoming meeting schedule. I'm just wondering, there's a lot of things that the Plan Commission has to do that is in addition to petitioner's business or whatever. I think Andrew Wright will give us a whole list of things that he's got on his agenda to talk about. And I'm just wondering, why are we talking about canceling meetings? Do any of you have a problem with meeting 4 times in a month?
As long as we've got something substantial to talk about, not just talking to each other.
What's wrong with talking to each other?
Well, we've talked about numerous times. I brought up at the end of the meeting about how we need to, continue to discuss the comprehensive plan. A lot of things have changed, and I think there's a lot of things we probably could talk about. I mean, I think there's any number of things that we've kind of pushed back and pushed back and pushed back, and I agree with Terry. I think that could be beneficial.
I don't think that there are a lot of things we can talk about that we don't need staff to really prepare anything. Let's talk about our policies and procedures and what we think we ought to do or not do, or things that, meetings that have gone good or meetings that have gone bad. What's wrong with just having, I don't want to call it a workshop, but maybe it is,
Well,
to
Andrew
just
has
talk about
a
those
list
things.
of things. Andrew, you got that with you?
Sure, it's up here.
Andrew, you want my printed version?
I think I remember most of them. So in the period that I would say runs from now until about December, we have some things that we know are coming. And a lot of these do overlap with the comprehensive plan, and they overlap with the streetscape subcommittee work that was done over the last year. So just running through them briefly, the village has a consultant that was hired to pick up where the Southeast TIF subcommittee left off and continue that project. So the consultant for the Southeast TIF project, we expect them to have land use alternatives for the Planning Commission and board to review within the next month. So that's one item. So that will take up workshop space either on a dedicated meeting or on a regular night. We've got the active transportation plan. The consultants on that project, also in the same time frame, should have a draft available. So there's two things right there that have overlap with subcommittee work and the comprehensive plan. So those are coming. The policy discussion that we bumped a couple of months ago, and we started up and then bumped it when we had the last Title 19 hearing. That is in the pipeline. We've got our periodic amendments to Title 21, which is the sign code. We have the redevelopment of the Wix site. According to what was discussed at one of the recent board meetings, they have right now, they're in a period where they're required to have the preliminary PUD come in front of the commission. That's a pretty significant, although it's petitioner business, it's pretty significant petitioner business. Let's see, I think that is just about everything we had. So that's kind of what we're looking at. We do try to, when we see a very light meeting coming up, we try to come up with some sort of workshop. We have something like that for tonight. Next week, we can discuss if we had to send out a cancellation notice. I'm sure some of you got it already for next week. We can just as easily uncancel a meeting if there's a desire to meet. We have the discussion that I mentioned for tonight. We could carry over in some fashion to next week. But we do have the ability to put together an agenda. Whether or not the staff can prepare any sort of formal report on short notice, it's questionable. So it's up to the commission. If there's a desire to meet next week, we can certainly do it. And as a policy note, we can also delay the cancellation of our meetings. Typically, we try to cancel before the board's agenda packet goes out, so that they have knowledge in advance that the upcoming meeting is not going to take place. But we can go to the village manager's office and review that and ask if there's any reason why we can't leave the meeting open longer for a workshop discussion to be formed. So it's up to the commission. The staff is here to.
Well, if we were to have a meeting next week, what would you put in them?
At this point, I would say one of a few things. A continuation of tonight's discussion, which we'll get into in a minute. So as the discussion goes, we would react to it and come up with follow-up for next week. That's one possibility. The policy discussion could be another possibility, but again, we're talking about a fairly limited time to put that together. I think we're going to be premature on the Southeast TIF, so that's not a possibility. I think we'll be premature on the active transportation plan, so that's not a possibility. So probably a continuation of what we have tonight would probably be the most likely.
Yeah, I would think that we'd be able to, we could talk about landscaping and streetscape design for as much time as people wanted to talk about it. We could talk about sidewalks and stuff. Even though there's an active transportation plan, we can talk about what our beliefs might be and stuff like that. I mean, streetlights, I think there's a whole gambit of things. But again, I just go back to my question. Does anybody have a problem with meeting all the time, 3 or 4 times a month, irregardless of what petitioner schedules, whatever might be? Do any one of us have a problem with doing that?
I certainly don't have a problem with it. I think that by doing this kind of thing, when we don't maybe have, rather than canceling a meeting, I agree with you, that doing this, we would eliminate so much discussion in a regular meeting. And that kind of takes the heat off staff too, because we're not belaboring some of these meetings, making them go longer. If we already have a meeting scheduled, we can talk about some of these things and maybe get some of those things out so that the meetings are focused on what's on the agenda and not, you know, policies or, you know, other discussion items. That's just my own personal feeling.
Commissioner Ruffado?
I mean, we signed up for our meetings we have during the week, during the month. Like next month would be 3 meetings. I don't have an issue with that as long as we have an agenda. I know, Terry, that, you know, just sitting around and talking, that to me is not very productive. As long as we have an objective and an agenda, I'm okay with it. I'm not going to come here and that night decide what we're going to talk about. That's not in my wheelhouse to do that.
One thing that the staff could do to help out with that is if we get to the point where we have a third Thursday, for example, which is the normal, we try to push petitioners toward the 2 second and fourth Thursdays so that we have the third Thursday for flexible use. One thing we could do if we get within a week of that meeting and we're close to publishing an empty agenda, we could send out the request for suggestions for topics of discussion. If we don't have one lined up that we can suggest, maybe we can put 2 or 3 out there and ask. But you know, in this case, we can also, we have a lot of things going on. We can do short updates on status of some of these projects. But what we could do is we get a little closer to the point where we're about to cancel, we can send out a request for suggestions for agenda items.
Well, I think maybe, and I think you were planning on doing it tonight, was at least for the streetscape item, was going through and categorizing, quantifying, and maybe prioritizing the items that need to be discussed. And once we have a list of prioritized things, as time permits, we can take the next thing on the priority queue and just be prepared to address it, you know, on, I don't want to say on a moment's notice, but know that it's going to be coming up on the agenda within the next 4 or 5 meetings as time permits. The other question that I would like to ask, I mean, recently, and I think this year probably due to the economy, many of our meetings have been relatively short, and it would seem to me that there's additional time after the meetings, and I want to say after the meeting, after the normal business of petitioner business, that there's probably time that we could work on some of those items as well. In the past, Jim, I know we went to 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night sometimes. I'm not proposing that we do that, but is there anything wrong with staying till 9 o'clock, 9:30 to do some of the gee whiz stuff that we should be doing or could be talking about, rather than keep pushing it off meeting after meeting? Would anybody have a problem with, you know, filling our time to 9:30 at night? Again,
I don't have a problem. That's what I was appointed. That's what I knew I was getting into. As long as we have a purpose, as long as we have a purpose and an agenda to that, I'm okay with it.
Commissioner Johnson.
I agree with Commissioner Ruffado. As long as we have some idea of how long these meetings could be, that would be a big help for those of us who still have to get up in the morning and go to work.
Well, even time isn't, I mean, because we've had meetings that have gone to midnight. Mm-hmm. We don't want to make a regular habit of that. I completely agree. then want to also have to get up in the morning and work, but those things do happen. But to stay here until midnight to discuss our policies doesn't make sense. Doesn't
Right,
make
so
sense. That's why Andrew suggested that we have the middle meeting, the second meeting as that meeting. I personally would prefer that than staying later, you know, to 9:30 or 10 o'clock. I would, that's my personal opinion. Again, though, with an agenda.
Commissioner Burns.
Thank you. Yeah, if there's an important objective, I have no problem meeting every Thursday if we got work to be done and we're making progress. And I would use it as an example. I'm in agreement with Commissioner Dorban's suggestion to have an educational seminar on the comprehensive plan. I know I could use it. I haven't really had any kind of education on that since I joined the commission. Picked up, of course, information as we've gone along, OJT, but I think that would be an objective that I would be interested in. But what you mean, Commissioner Stylen, by let's just meet and talk about gee whiz stuff, I can't say that I'm necessarily open to whatever might fall into that category. So I guess I'm saying on a case-by-case basis, I would be fully behind having a special meeting to get some business done. Thank you.
Schaaf?
Speaking personally, Andrew, it looks like the 20th is the one that you look like you're also going to consider canceling.
Well, the 16th of August and the 20th of September are both that third Thursday. That's the
special meeting.
That is the regular special meeting. That's on our calendar.
Yeah.
That's on our monthly calendar as
Right.
it is, as being the third Thursday meeting for workshop discussion. But we do have voting items on those.
Well, since I had planned not to attend, I'm not available on the 16th of August. You know, of course, I would rather have, meet on the 20th of September. But as Commissioner Burns pointed out, I've had very little background on the comprehensive plan. I think we need to at least review something on that order. We may also have some agenda items to talk about from the meeting that's coming up on the 30th. So I would like to see something on the 20th. It takes pressure about taking. Putting you guys under the gun, you and Brooke under the gun for agenda items for the 16th. Of course, takes me off the hook too. Thank you.
Commissioner Raffato said a little more succinctly than I did in the beginning, but yeah, I don't mind having the extra meetings as long as we get an agenda item and it's worked out ahead of time what we're going to be talking about. The first Thursday of each month, I have other commitments also. It's been working out.
I also cannot make the first Thursdays.
I think, and maybe I'm incorrectly interpreting what Commissioner Stylen is asking for. I think what Commissioner Stylen is asking for, though, is putting this one special Thursday aside. I think what Commissioner Stylen is saying is we've got 3 meetings on the calendar. Don't take them off the calendar if there's something we could meet for. The suggestion wasn't to add another first.
No, just not cancel the ones that we have, or if one like tonight, as you did for tonight, there's a few items on the agenda, that the meeting probably won't last more than 45 minutes. Maybe we could take some of that stuff that we've got in our bailiwick.
Pull one of the 10 items out.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
20 minutes on it.
Which is what we are doing this evening, getting into the streetscape.
Sure, but again, my comment was, can we set that as an objective for every meeting? Meetings that are short, can we plan on saying, fill it up with something that might last to, a 9 o'clock time frame or something like that on a regular basis? Andrew's pretty good at most cases, guesstimating how long a meeting might go, and if it's going to be relatively short, just add something in. We can always push it, you know, especially if it's a other business item, we can always push it off.
You know, can I dovetail on another suggestion, or should I wait till the end?
Go ahead.
You know, sometimes in a lot of places, they have a committee of the whole before the meeting, so that you have an opportunity to talk about what's on the agenda and get that out in the open and have your discussion prior to getting the agenda going. And then when the agenda comes, you're pretty much ready to make your vote. What would people think of having a committee of the whole prior to the start of our regular agendas, to have a little roundtable discussion on some things? I mean, that's, you know, that's quite beneficial in a lot of places, in a lot of situations.
It's kind of redundant, though, isn't it?
Not necessarily, no, because you have your committee of the whole and everybody discusses if they have questions about things that are on the agenda, and then when you get ready to do your agenda, you're basically voting. That's it, if there's some issues. It's only a thought.
Is there a,
Can we do that?
is there a community that you could think of?
A lot of school districts do it. My previous school district
Trying to
did
think
it.
if
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll have to look
The
into
Open Meetings Act
Yeah, it's
must
part of the
fall
open,
into
it's
play.
absolutely appropriate. You post it, it's on there. It's a
Well,
committee of the
I was
whole,
saying, I don't
everything's
know.
We
discussed.
still have to televise it then.
Pardon me?
We still have to televise it
Of
and
course
make an
it's
open meeting.
televised. Yeah,
So-
televise them, but why not?
The discussion you're having now, you'd have at the beginning of the meeting.
Right.
So that's why I say it's kind of redundant.
Yeah.
Yeah, you still got to have the
Whatever.
discussion.
I think the suggestion was if there's items, say you have the items for review, the commission can't discuss them outside of an open meeting, but you could have an open meeting that starts a half hour earlier or whatever, a half hour before the petitioners are asked to speak, so that if you have technical questions.
Right. Because you know, you can't email, everybody can't email and talk to one another because that's a violation. But if you have questions and it's in an open session, you can, if they're technical questions.
What's the difference between asking them then and asking them during the regular meeting?
Nothing, I guess, Bill, because I was just bringing it up because I thought it was a good suggestion.
I dealt with it only once, so we started the Human Rights Commission, we had it, it was kind of clumsy. It's just my opinion.
I'm sorry, Bill, I missed that last statement.
I said it was kind of, when I was on the Human Rights Commission, first year we did that, and it's just kind of clumsy. I mean, you
Doesn't mean because it was clumsy then, it'll be clumsy now.
yeah, but I've looked at it, and I just don't see any advantage of it. That's my personal opinion.
I personally don't have, I've never heard the term, so I wouldn't even know the context of it and what could or could not be discussed. You call it a, what was it?
Committee of the
Committee
whole.
of the
Committee
whole.
of the whole.
In a municipality, the time that I think I've seen it most commonly is the board, the elected officials. Some towns, that's what they call their workshop meeting. So the way I've seen it, they'll do it as a separate night, call that the committee of the whole, and you may have a land use review that requires a committee of the whole meeting before you're allowed to appear at a voting meeting. I can look and see if there's any rules about a plan commission having something like that. I can at least
I had no idea,
report back.
but I thought, you know,
Or at least, you know, I'm not that familiar with it either. Give us some benefits that might accrue or some
I'd have
negative
to.
things that might accrue.
I'd have to research it, but I can do that.
Would it be something like other business just at, I mean, is that the concept or
It's more
what
like
we call
it's
other
more like a
business?
workshop on what you're going to vote on later.
right.
Oh, it'd be just to the topics
Just to the
of
topics.
the.
Yeah.
It's, you know, if you have somebody that, you know, you want to talk about something specifically that's on a topic, on the agenda, that you want more clarification of, prior to going into it, rather than continue
So
it.
it could have been like tonight, Andrew, with the setback variation and stuff like that. We maybe could have had a little bit more discussion beyond that the petitioner was involved in or something. Is that the idea?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like I said, I have not seen it used by a plan commission, and I don't know one way or the other if it would be
I don't either,
permitted.
but that's why I
I can research it and get back to you guys on it.
And then, I guess to take it, and I was going to go down that path of variation, but if the petitioner's not here to hear it, then present to hear it, we then discuss it again. Just using that as an example, we would discuss it again within the meeting to bring the petitioner up to speed.
It's more discussion to have with the staff to determine if there are any other items that we need to consider before we vote on this. If there's technical things, policy things, whatever, might be needed. That's my interpretation of it. Now, it was only a suggestion.
No? Well,
Excuse me, but also we have, during the course of petitioner meetings, have brought up items for consensus, which would be a place to do that prior to the petitioner's meeting, so you could have a consensus of what the commission may think on a certain subject.
But I guess my problem with that is the consensus normally comes up because I heard something or you heard something or somebody came up with a kind of an idea and we played around and now all of a sudden it's a better idea, and I don't know that we do that without having the petitioner involved. Do you guys for that? I think normally it's something that the petitioner says, yeah, I could do that, or I can't do that, or
Yeah, it usually comes up during the discussion.
yeah, exactly. So
It's not spontaneous. So you're saying is it's spontaneous, and I submit that it could be something. There are items that would not be spontaneous. People are looking when they review a petitioner's case.
I guess maybe the only time that I think something like that may be beneficial is a lot of times before a meeting, we submit a lot of questions to Andrew about a topic or whatever, or something that's going on, or a question about the docket item. Maybe that would be a place to have Andrew discuss all those questions and all the answers, but then again, isn't that something that we would probably get around to discussing in the petitioner's docket anyway? But again, I don't know.
Well, let me read you something. I just Googled it. Procedurally, this is Committee of the Whole for the House of Representatives. Differs from the House of Representatives even though they have identical membership. The Committee of the Whole only requires 100 members for a quorum, while only 25 members are required to force a recorded rather than a voice vote. In the version of the Committee of the Whole that existed in the British House of Commons, the original use of this committee was to debate bills privately and prevent a recorded vote from being taken. It is normally invoked to give initial consideration of important legislation, including bills for raising revenue, and serves to expedite the process since debate over the amendment occurs under a special 5-minute rule. The House and the Commons for the whole do not operate in the same time. Rather, to consider the bills, the House must resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole. To dissolve itself, the Committee of the Whole must rise and report with a recommendation. The Committee of the Whole can recommend amendments to any bill. The House must then approve these amendments before the amendments are added to the final bill.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
Just kidding, just kidding.
Well, in the interest of moving on for tonight, I think what we can do is, for the time being, keep our 3 meetings, see what happens next month, put together an item. We can go through what we have prepared for tonight, which is really two things, actually. Go through what we have prepared for tonight, and then at the end of that, decide whether or not we want to meet next week. And we have sent out notice of cancellation, so we'd be uncanceling that meeting if that's the decision at the end of tonight. But we can certainly look up some of these things and report back. But so what we had prepared for is consensus to move on to tonight's.
Yep.
Okay. So there were two things that I had prepared for tonight. Let me get that off the screen. The first was just an explanation. We've got two plans that are going on right now that consultants for the village are working on our behalf. The Southeast TIF discussion, the Southeast TIF district redevelopment plan, and the active transportation plan. So each one of those has overlap with topics that were the subject of Plan Commission subcommittees. So both of these plans are coming to the Plan Commission in draft form for discussion. The plans, in particular, I'll focus for a second on the active transportation plan. The active transportation plan has pieces in it that were suggested by staff from the Streetscape subcommittee report. So there are things already in the draft that they're working on that came out of the Streetscape subcommittee. So that's the sidewalk prioritization, taking something like, I think it was Warrenville, correct? Taking something like the Warrenville model for prioritizing sidewalk construction, analyzing gaps in our sidewalk network, determining based on proximity to facilities which sidewalk segments might be a priority. So there are elements of that going into this plan. There are elements of the priority intersections. There's elements of the gateway idea, the hub idea. So there are elements of that in this plan. There are concepts related to pedestrian, being an active transportation plan. There are pieces of this plan that are related to softening the pedestrian environment, again with landscaping. So there are elements of that ongoing. There are, if you just go down the table of contents, you can sort of see different pieces of the Streetscape subcommittee working their way into the elements of that plan. So that is not to say that the commission should not keep discussing, but I just want everyone to be aware that these things are progressing on through our consultants, and you will see them again in the not too distant future. We had a steering committee meeting with the consultants this week, and went through some of this. We haven't seen the full text of the plan yet. They're still drafting that, but we saw many of their recommendations, at least in outline form. And I can tell you that many of the topics discussed by the Streetscape subcommittee are coming up, and there's definite overlap. So that, I think, covers one of the topics that I had, just the general awareness that some of these things are coming back to you, and they're not sitting, not collecting dust yet. So
Can I make a comment on that?
Sure.
I think one of the things that was brought up Monday night at the village board meeting specifically, I think, did they not talk about both these plans, Andrew?
They talked about
the sidewalk
there were
thing
requests, yes,
and the Southeast TIF, I think. Their concern was, hey, it's one thing to go off and have consultants and people produce reports and come up with things and then bring it back to the Plan Commission for approval. At least I think that was the gist that I was hearing. And the comments that were being made at the board meeting were, why isn't the Plan Commission involved in the ongoings of that discussion process that leads to the plan. And I think they said not necessarily the entire Plan Commission, but the Plan Commission should be a representative so that that commissioner could come back and talk about what's going on there and what's going on here. And that may be a concept for Pam's, Committee of the Whole, where we can get reports back from the Southeast TIF group or the sidewalk group, whatever, if we did have a participant on that other committee. So, I mean, is that your recollection of what the board was kind of talking about? Kind of?
I think there was, and the discussion wasn't that long and in depth, and I do remember it, but from what I recall, there was a request to have the commission involved. And I think part of that was the stage that we're at. So a lot of what the commission has worked on ended up going into the preliminary, into the background that these consultants were given. The tasks that they had were originally informed by years of work, especially in the case of the Streetscape Subcommittee and the Bicycle and Pedestrian Task Force. That's two different groups that the consultants were given the background information from those. So there's a steering committee for that plan that does have representation on it. There's going to be public meetings with the Plan Commission that are the draft is being presented. It's not going to be presented as a complete document, but a lot of the tasks that they've had to do have been public engagement. The surveying, the meeting with a whole host of other entities. So a lot of what they've done at this point has been the preparation that just requires a ton of background work. There's been, they've been studying the streets. The engineers have been working on it. So they're coming back, and they're going to come back and meet with the commission. So then, moving on to the streetscape is prepared for tonight. There was while some of this is overlapping, as I said, with what the active transportation plan consultants have worked on. There's also the other side of it, which is the code side, which is what do you do with the sign code and the zoning code with respect to landscaping requirements. Obviously, a lot of this is in the public realm, and it's village landscaping too. But what we've started to do here is knowing where the draft plan is going. Where are the zoning code and the sign code with respect to some of these to some of the landscaping trends that the commission's been talking about for a while? So what the staff did was we went out and took a look at landscaping and tried to just get a handle on what seems to have worked well over time, what's not working well, and try to start the beginning of the process of, is there some way to encourage this? Is there some way to require it? Is there some way to do both? So where we are right now, I'll just run through some of these, taking a look at what's good and trying to figure out why it's good. Some of these, it's the mix of plants. It's what they've used. They've hired somebody who's doing a great job of maintaining it. So you've got some, in this example, this is KFC and Taco Bell, well maintained throughout the year. They've done a good job with a mix of evergreen. They've done a good job with a mix of annuals and perennials. The Jiffy Lube, on Dundee Road and Wolf has, around their sign area, which was approved not too long ago, they've done a good job of selecting things that survive well in this environment. It's low maintenance, sage, daylilies. There's not going to be much to look at in the winter, but for spring, fall, summer, it's got thriving landscaping around the sign. The other side of on Milwaukee Avenue, we've got extensive landscaping at Turnkey IT and Colsack Funeral Home. Taking a look at that, some of this was related to facade improvement grants at these businesses. There's obviously a lot of annuals in these. These tend to be fairly expensive landscape configurations to plant and maintain. Your question? I thought you were trying to ask a question. So there's a lot of annuals. They're fairly expensive. They require a pretty good deal of maintenance to look this way. And going back to the streetscape subcommittee, whether or not you can require or should require something that is difficult to maintain, I think is a policy question that the commission is going to need to get into as we move forward. Some of the other things we noticed, trends that seem to be doing well, you've got a lot of decorative grasses that do really well. They come back, they're fairly low maintenance. Visual interest carries on through the winter if you leave them up and don't cut them down in the fall. We saw a pretty good amount of stonework when we were out. Really seems to enhance the overall package with landscaping. We got a few more shots of things like that. Some of these, again, maybe not the best examples in terms of practical application to your average petitioner, because this one, for example, this is what they do. They are a contractor who installs this type of material. So they have, first of all, an interest in showing this to customers, and also they have the ability to probably do it at a much lower cost than anybody else could. But the idea here, again, is that mix of stonework, you've got different areas of interest, you've got plants that do well in this environment. You know, full sun plants planted in full sun seems common sense, but a lot of people end up selecting things that don't thrive just based on the availability of sunlight. Good example of a mix of manicured lawn area, ground cover, and then patches of decorative grass kept away from the shade trees so that they'll do a good job. And this, it's a little bit difficult to get the picture of this, but this is extremely well maintained. I would guess this is a weekly, maybe a twice weekly maintenance on this.
And who is this?
This is Indec.
Oh, yeah.
There's a wider view. This is also Indec. They have another building around the corner, which you see on the right of this. Other things, we've got multifamily residential. You have sort of the entry signs of these subdivisions. You have a large number of units contributing to a small land area, so they tend to be able to, at their entryways, do a concentrated area of annuals. This will probably be switched out 3 times over the course of a year. It'll go from this to mums to tulips. You may see a bunch of different seasonals. Same thing in a place like a large apartment complex may have a gateway type of feature to it. So I think what we came away with was trying to break down the decisions that need to be made. Do you go, again, the mix of requirement versus encouragement? The staff has been talking about, is there a way to take some of this and go more encouragement and less requirement, and maybe spend some time thinking about a program to more formally encourage through competition. You take the same amount of money. We're trying to figure out if you have 1 or 2 TIF, facade grant applications that have a landscaping component. You take that amount of money and offered half of that as a monetary prize, you might get 10 properties instead of just one. You might get the competition. It's not a guarantee, but you might get the possibility at least of the prestige of winning, landscaping of the year if it had a clear, you put a little money into a sign, 2012 winner of the Wheeling Landscape of the Year. You have, we've done the awards. They tend to be non-prize oriented. I mean, there's obviously some distinction, some honor in getting a sign award from the Plan Commission, but having a category for residential, having a category for industrial, and a category for commercial, you might be able to encourage people to do it. We can take a look at other towns and see what they've done, but that might be one possibility of coupling a code requirement with a encouragement program to really encourage people to take a look at their landscaping and have some pride in it. That being said, a lot of what we deal with is the codes, and we can take. I met briefly with the village forester this week and did a little follow-up on her recommendations that she had worked with Commissioner Dorband on how to possibly rephrase some of our landscaping requirements to get, how do you phrase minimum requirements differently so that maybe the end goal is reached, but the requirement itself is less specific, more flexibility of, instead of X number of inches or X number of trees, you get the big picture goal that you want.
Yeah, and I think one of the things, and this is the kind of discussion, that the Streetscape Committee kept having that we'd like to discuss with the rest of the commission, in that we felt that there were probably three. We talked about the three areas, right? The arterial, streetscape view, and then there was what's the middle one called? And then a residential industrial view. Collector. Collector view. So that'd be like the side street, major side streets. And, the idea that if we can put a little bit more stricter and larger requirements on landscaping in the areas that are most visible to everybody, and then, in the industrial and residential, kind of reduce those requirements. There are a lot of businesses in town, and I haven't been over there in a while, but Wheel Inn always seem to have a very extensive amount of landscaping, and it's really unfortunate. It's at a place in the village where hardly anybody ever gets to, and yet their landscaping is beyond what we would ever think about requiring. And I don't want them to stop doing what they're doing, because they're on a nice corner.
But what you're saying, Terry, and dovetailing on what Andrew said, giving them some kind of award, putting it in the village paper, maybe putting it on the website, that they, that giving them some notoriety for the good things they've done is not a bad thing.
No,
I mean, we did have an appearance review committee for a long time when we did those very things. And I think that, it's time that we brought that back, and we, really praised people for giving them, for going the extra mile to add plants and take care of their property, and let's showcase them.
Right, but I think the general concept was to try and, put the best out in the highly traveled areas, and then reduce the requirements to the innards where not as many people traverse. And if we could work on something like that? I mean, we'd have to create a tier of landscaping requirements then, or incentives or whatever to do it. Any comments on that kind of approach?
Well, at one time, we talked about having a pamphlet
Right.
showcasing some of those businesses that went beyond the norm, and I think one of them was Turnkey.
Right.
Certainly, what Phillips has done on the corner of 83 and Dundee, before and after, would do wonders.
Well, also though is sustainability too. When the Phillips 66 station went in the first time, very nice landscaping, but
40 years later?
It wasn't sustained. It wasn't sustained 20 years later.
Right.
It's terrible. But to your point, Terry, about different tiers, I couldn't disagree with that more. You know, and using Wheel Inn as an example, I bring my car there, and you would not even know that it's an auto repair shop. And why lessen the landscaping irrespective of where it's at in the village? Because somebody does drive back there, and are we, I think we should not lessen anything in this village, and if anything, strengthen just the arterial areas even more so, and not lessen anything else. I can't, that to me does not make sense, that we'll give somebody a break because they're far back in one of our industrial parks. People still go back there. We have roads there, and we drive by them, and we wouldn't know about Wheel Inn unless you went there and used it. So I would never, ever be in favor of doing something like that.
Well, I guess I'm not saying reduce it below what we have today, but I'm saying should the major thoroughfares have an even greater landscaping requirement than some of the other areas?
That's different. You're saying the same thing, but it's different than what you said the first time.
Exactly, okay.
Right, because lessening what we have just doesn't make sense. Increasing in some areas, I could see that, definitely. Yes.
Terry.
But again, it came back to the different tiers for the different types of areas that we have in town, and then coming up with a standard or criteria or even ordinances, you know, to support those different tier areas.
Terry, you spoke earlier about a pamphlet. I thought that one of the reasons for the pamphlet was to give an example to people who are applying here of some of the recommended plants and shrubs and things.
Right.
Was that part of it?
If you look at the application for signage, just as an example, and it's in the streetscape documentation, one of the numbers, towards the end they give examples of good landscaping, bad landscaping, kinds of things we like. So I think we're just saying maybe put a little bit better effort into that particular pamphlet, because I believe that's the application is what you give petitioners when they come in for a sign, for example. And no, yes?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I'm thinking back maybe it's probably 6 years ago, and I drew those by hand intentionally to not scare people because I wanted people to feel comfortable submitting a plan. I didn't want every smaller company to think that they couldn't do it because they couldn't draw. So I have some in there that are drawn by computer, but most of them are drawn by hand so that people could see that you could submit it this way. But there is nothing in that application that is intended to be an example of here are photographs of 10 plants. These are shade, these are deciduous. There's no guide. It's just, here's a sample of a plan. This is what they look like, just so that people could see how the landscape plan could potentially look.
Could you give us an idea of, in the last 3 or 4 years, the number of petitioners that have come in, how many of them have, a professional landscaper lay out the plan, how many of them are do-it-yourself, I don't want to say don't care, but don't put a lot of effort into creating the plan?
It's hard to put a number on it because people come in with a professional and then stop paying that professional. So the installation may be not the same group that drew it. That happens. So you may have a design person who is not at all associated with the installation person. Sometimes people are really good at drawing and you would think that a professional did it. So we've also got some great landscape professionals who draw by hand. so it's hard to put a number on it. But we've definitely noticed more in recent years who have gone to a photo index to supplement their plan. They'll show some of the most outstanding. I think you've seen in the last couple of years, there have been 2 or 3 that have, they'll even go so far as to show this is what the plant looks like every season. There'll be 4 pictures of each plant. I don't think we're probably not going to provide a pamphlet that's that detailed, because then you'll see everybody probably plant the exact same plant. But I think having a palette, maybe examples, here are 5 things from this zone that work in, shade, here are 5 annuals, here are 5 perennials. I think we could come up with a pamphlet.
Yeah, and I guess our only concept was to kind of beef up that example section of the application to make it a little bit more germane to the 3 areas and, concentrate on some of the different, we had suggested coming up or with that percentage of deciduous and this and percentage of annuals and stuff like that Lori had kind of recommended. So, I just think those kinds of things are worth discussing. I don't know if you've looked at the sign application to see what the examples are, and I think they're in a couple other locations, those exact same samples, but it'd be nice to have the commission review them and just talk about how we might be able to exploit that piece of paper that every petitioner sees.
I think just to add on to that, we have a section of the zoning code, probably 2 sections of the zoning code that go into extreme detail about landscaping that I think we probably should revisit and have a discussion related to this about the way that we phrase the requirement. We've got very specific numbers, very specific, it's a good page or 2 out of the zoning code that I think if it were a simpler, more user-friendly, this is not the only area of the code that we could probably stand to go along with this recent trend in zoning codes to be more graphic-based. But this is one example of it, but zoning codes are starting to show pictures. If you have a character that you're looking at, front yard setback requirements, people are starting to illustrate using 3D diagrams a lot more. So this is one area that maybe we could take 3 pages out of the code and be a little bit simpler if we had a bullet point and some diagrams.
Pictures, yeah.
And that's the extent of what I had prepared for tonight.
All right, let's, for the next meeting on streetscapes, what are our action items? What are we going to do for the next meeting?
My suggestion on the streetscape, as of right now, is there's enough in here that we have to take a look at, and there's enough going on with the active transportation plan that I think my opinion on that is to let the active transportation plan come to you and you can see it. In the meantime, while that's happening, we can work on some of these items, take a look at the application. Whether or not the commission wants to meet, I will leave up to the commission.
All right, but what are the items that you've got left for us to look at?
I cannot put together a pamphlet. I can get the applications together, obviously, and distribute them so everybody can take a look at it. We can talk about the applications. We could talk about the section of the zoning code that I was just referring to. We could probably, by next Thursday night, there's not going to be a report, but by next Thursday night, we could probably look at incentive programs and see how people structure them.
And the thing that I'd like to talk about again is that concept of coming up with percentages of types of material to see what you guys think of that kind of a concept.
That's in landscaping materials?
Yeah.
So we're going to look at the application. We're going to look, what are we going to do with the zoning code?
There's that, I don't know if you remember it, but there's a section of the zoning code, two sections. One, landscape and buffer yard requirements, and one is under parking lot landscaping. Both of those sections, probably the most detailed landscape requirements in the zoning code.
We're going to review that.
Yes.
Center programs and percentage of types of materials for landscaping. Now we've got something solid at the next meeting to work on.
Should we invite Lori Hazelwood to be part of that meeting?
Sure. She was invited tonight, and she something came up, and she had to take care of that. But she had originally thought that she'd be able to make it. And she had another commitment. I don't know if she's available next week.
Oh, invite.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
as long as we're kind of on the same streetscape subcommittee, one of the items that the streetscape subcommittee discussed was street lighting. And again, at Monday night's village board meeting, I believe the village approved the concept of installing street lighting on Dundee Road between the border of Buffalo Grove Road and Milwaukee Avenue. Now, one of the things that I would really like to have the Plan Commission involved in that concept discussion, because if you look at the village's streetlights down near Milwaukee Avenue, it's basically a pole, and then the street light head is immediately adjacent to the pole. I mean, it's physically right attached to the pole. If you look at Buffalo Grove's street lights, they have a, I don't know, I'll just say 4-foot arm such that the pole and the light element, whatever you call it, head, I guess, is about 4 feet out on a pole. And, you know, there's a difference of style there.
Those are ones on Dundee Road, east of Buffalo Grove Road you're talking about?
Well, they go all the way.
The ones that go all through
Yeah,
Buffalo.
All through Buffalo Grove.
But this end, they just did a couple of years ago.
Right, yes.
And the Buffalo Grove lights have a decorative base. Well, I'll call it, it's not really decorative. It's a cover that covers the bolts, I think.
Yeah.
Whereas if you look at ours on Milwaukee, the bolts are showing. You know, some of the other things that the subcommittee talked about are are they going to be provisioned with an outlet for some kind of ornamental, Christmas lights, whatever? Are they going to have a provision to put a banner on them? Are they going to be provisioned to have, what were some of the other? Flower pots on them. And we're going, in the town center area, we're going to have 10-foot wide sidewalks. Should some of them be provisioned to have maybe a little decorative pedestrian-oriented lighting to cover the sidewalk? And the only reason I'd rather get in early on that discussion, again, rather than waiting for some group of people to get together and say it's going to cost, I think they said $400,000 to do this project, and say, okay, it's based upon that same kind of pole that we have on Milwaukee Avenue, so let's go do it. Oh, by the way, we better get the Plan Commission to approve it, and now you're not going to, you may lose some of those accoutrements or added value things that they haven't thought of. So I'd like to somehow get in early on that discussion for the streetlights that are going in on Dundee Road.
And
what do you guys think about that?
I agree.
Andrew, can you write something to village manager and attach the portion of the streetscape report on lighting and tell him we'd like to be part of the decision on that?
Yes, there's the next step in that, just in terms procedurally, it's a grant. And so what the staff was asking the board was, because the grant requires a local match, your budget has to reflect that you are prepared for that local match. So what the staff was asking the board was for consensus to amend the budget to show that we have budgeted for the local match so that we can submit an application for the grant program. So as far as I know, this is early, and it's early enough to request that type of involvement. I don't know all of the details of this, so I can't guarantee there isn't more to it than that. But that is what I believe has happened so far. So I'll check with the manager's office.
So thank you for the interruption, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Are we done on this subject for now? Other business? Other than other? Mr. Burns, you have anything?
Nothing from me, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Johnson?
No, nothing.
Mr. Rufato?
Nothing.
Ms. Dorband?
Couple things. One of those meetings where we don't have anything on the docket, we really don't have anything for an agenda, might be a good time to do another van tour. That's one suggestion. And the other thing is, ever since Commissioner Rufato has brought up the issue of work being done on vehicles at AutoZone, I have been watching. Today, in fact, there were 3 vehicles in the lot with their hoods up. I just happened to snap a picture of just as the third one shut his hood, but I do have a picture of the other 2. And this is an ongoing occurrence. I go by there quite often, and this is a problem. What can we do about it?
AutoZone, unlike any other auto parts retailer that comes after them, is not a special use. They have a site plan approval that has these types of conditions attached to it. I think there's an expectation among all of these types of retailers to provide certain limited services. So they'll meet with the village on that they'll limit what they do to checking your battery, replacing your battery, replacing wipers for people. They have a list of a small amount of services that they say this is just good customer service. What we like to cut off is I'll just pop my hood and do all my work here rather than take it home and do it. So they have been responsive about that when we talk to them about it. Obviously, we're not catching every single one, and this is not a discussion I've had with them very recently either. But we can certainly go back to them and try to remind them. But it's every time I do discuss that with them, I'm one of a handful of village representatives who talk to them about this, I think. So every time I bring it up to them, at least, that is the response I get is we stop people. We do stop people. They also just don't stop everybody. And then they have the same argument that, some of these things are just good customer service. You have to replace wiper blades for people, period. So
I wouldn't have a problem with wiper blades. I understand that. But there were 3 of them with their hoods up at one time. And this is not abnormal. I guess my issue would not be if it was something simple like, wiper blades. I could live with that. But it happens all the time.
And we can go, it has had an impact in the past when we talked to them about it. We can go back to them and talk to them again. But just procedurally, they are slightly different than they are the reason the code was changed to make that a special use. So they don't have a special use that we can revoke in the same way that somebody else might.
But I thought when they were approved, correct me if I'm wrong, they were required to put up signs inside that said people would not be doing this. And now we're allowing it, so I'm confused.
We're not allowing it. As far as I know, those signs are still there.
They are there.
They're on the outside of the building,
They're on the outside of the building, right where they're working.
So my question is, if we're going to allow it, then let's remove the signs. Otherwise, I think we look foolish.
I think they would happily remove the signs if we told them they could do that.
What are we allowing besides wiper changes? Did you say changing batteries?
They offer a list, not just AutoZone. All of these types of retail stores have a short list of services that they provide. They'll check your battery life for you and tell you whether or not you need to replace it. They need
to lift the hood to do that.
I believe they'll pop the hood and replace your battery. I believe they will check your battery for you.
Headlights.
But my guess is that 9 times out of 10, one of the employees is not out there with the person. Not out there with the person. They just decided to do it right there, add coolant, add oil, do whatever. And granted, you could be right, it's not a special, you're right that it's not a special use, but we had that as a condition. And it was never brought up that they do certain amount of work there. I know one of the things that they advertise, I think on the windows, is that we will test they'll put the tester on there and identify the code, like if your check engine light is on, they'll identify the code and tell you, you need this. And I know they do that, but I don't think you need to open up the hood for that. But the point is that if an employee is helping them, then okay, I can understand it, change a battery. But the majority of the time, it's just people working on their cars.
And I think they have, not to defend them in this, but when we have talked to them, what I have found twice in the past is that there's a newer manager who's totally unaware of this. And it's very possible that this is manager number 4 and hasn't had this discussion with us yet.
He hasn't read the sign when he's going in the door?
No, like I said, I'm not defending them. I'm just saying this is a discussion that we've had with them, but because it is not a special use, we have one less option in dealing with it.
Well, then we need to take that, when we have a condition, we can't put that in there because putting it in there is meaningless then, basically.
I mean, if you're suggesting, I think what was exposed in this is that there's a type of retail store that operates differently than other retail stores, and the solution that the Plan Commission and Board had after that was to make it a special use. The conditions of approval that were attached to AutoZone, I think, are attached to a site plan. We can't revoke their site plan in a way that's going to have an impact. I don't know if I'm explaining that.
Andrew, let me ask you a point blank question. I'm assuming that when we did advanced auto, they were special use under this new criteria, and we also told them you can't do any outdoor stuff. If they have hoods raised and stuff, are we really going to revoke their special use? It's going to be exactly the same, isn't it? Be honest with me. We're not going to revoke their special use because somebody has the hood raised to replace a fuse or a headlight or check a wire or whatever. Right? We're not going to do that.
Yeah, we're open to suggestion on how to address them. What we have done is meet with them, remind them. We can look at a property maintenance, not being in accordance with your site, and start fining them if it's permissible. If we're allowed to fine them for it, we can take a look and see if that's a possibility.
But I mean, I think some solution like that is much better than revoking their special use, because we just won't do that. That's an extreme solution.
Yeah, that's really extreme.
I don't think we'd ever invoke.
Yeah, I think, the lessons that were learned got applied. One other possibility, I think you've got conditions of approval that are operational and conditions of approval that are construction. Your leverage on construction is massive. To not open a store that's built because they haven't met a condition of approval that is related to their initial construction, that's pretty strong. To go to an operational condition is not as strong.
But I think it's just one of persistence, right, Jim? I seem to remember some shopping cart things that went on for years at, where was it, Sam's Club? Or, that just after being persistent, they finally gave in, built a little cart area and said, we'll keep them out of that front area. And to the best of my knowledge, they've done it. So maybe it's just a matter of policing them and talking to them every so often. That may be the best solution.
I would suggest next time if you take a picture with your cell phone, mail it to Andrew. And
I have it, I'll email it.
rather than saving it, then someone can go over that day. Anything else, Pam?
I just wanted to say, I don't know if anybody's been into the remodeled Walmart lately, but it is light, bright, and it is a dramatic improvement, and I was very impressed with how they've handled it. So.
Yeah, the aisles are wide and it's beautiful.
It is fully operational. All the groceries given clearance by community development, so it's fully operational.
Even the meat section, last time I was in there, the meat wasn't quite
It was a little slim over the weekend yet, but they're working on
They
it.
had their grand opening yesterday
week.
morning?
Oh, I thought we were meeting next week.
Next week.
It's at 7:30 in the morning.
Is it next week? I thought it was this week.
Next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday?
Wednesday.
But they're going to, and they're going to 24-hour in the near future, if they haven't already, they're going to 24-hour.
Yeah, 7:30 in the morning.
Work already.
All right, Commissioner Stylen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Unfortunately, I do have a couple items, right? One of the items on the agenda tonight was Marco's Pizza, and they were asking, we had approved a sign and pole colors and all that kind of stuff, and then today they asked for a change in the colors, whatever, and included in the picture that you so nicely provided, the pole was already changed that color, and I'm just wondering, why do we have these ever ongoing conditions where a petitioner comes in for approval for a sign that he's already done? To me, we're not going to make him rip it out or change it or paint it back to the original color so he can repaint it to the new color. Why do we do these things? I would offer a suggestion that we just, do something like you've done it. We'll put it on the Plan Commission for a consent agenda item, but we're going to fine you, $50 or $100 for not checking with us first. And oh, by the way, that fine will go into the sidewalk, building a new sidewalk contribution fund so that we can, benefit the community in some other way. It just happens, and, why? It's one of those things, we're not going to make them undo what they've already spent money doing. So,
I don't know in this case what possibly could have been done differently. They made a mistake. We inspected it, told them your sign is not what was approved during the initial inspection, and they said, well, how do we fix it? We said, well, what do you want? Do you want it to be a red pole or do you want it to be a green pole? They said, we screwed up. We had originally wanted it to be red because Marco's color is red. They said, how do we rectify it? We said, apply for a new sign permit because your old one is a different sign. So I don't know what they could have done differently other than...
That's right, and we wouldn't have turned it down, but all I'm saying is maybe we could get a few bucks for the sidewalk construction fund.
Okay, so now I'm confused because this is the sign and we approved this, right? We approved...
Go back.
Because I thought we were and I completely missed this then. So this is what we approved, right?
This was approved.
Okay. And I thought it was the opposite.
This is what it looks like. What they are still working on is this cabinet is green. They're proposing to be red so that the pole and the cabinet are the same.
Okay, and I agree with Commissioner Stylen because how could we, and I missed this because when I see existing conditions, I'm assuming that that's what it's going to be and we're changing it to this. And I missed the date here. I mean, that's an ugly sign. That's an ugly sign. And I missed it. I would have taken this off of the consent agenda if I would have known that. The way it was presented is existing conditions, okay, and granted I see everybody standing there, but that's ridiculous. That is absurd. We wanted that sign, and what we got is not what we wanted. And to Commissioner Stylen's point, they know that they're not going to get it, we won't change it. So we have to put some teeth behind these things, or what are we here for? I don't understand it. Now, granted, I know the village board's going to say we have too much say in these signs, but that's what we're here for. That's what we're here for. The sign committee, we're the SCBA, whatever it is. And that to me is crazy. We need some teeth behind this because it's not the first time it happened. Well, and they're drastically different.
I guess the question I would have is, in this case, they made the sign panel swap out, got, I would say caught, pretty close to when they put it in. And the solution we offered them was redo your permit and request this. I mean, this could have been denied tonight.
Yeah, well, I misunderstood this. I would have denied it, because really, to me, that's an ugly sign. But the point is, the larger point is that we do this. And I guess from a staff standpoint is, why didn't it come back to the Plan Commission to say, Plan Commission, this is what's happening. What direction should we take this? Because that's different than reapplying, because that's really giving them tacit approval. We're going to approve this thing. Because to Commissioner Stylin's point that we're not going to do anything, and they're just going to apply for it, nothing behind it. This one really upsets me. It's goofy, because they do it all the time.
And they still have to put landscaping around the base too, right? Or have they done that?
That was, I don't think you can see it. I think somebody's standing in front of it, but it's back there.
It's there. You can
The
see
base.
Oh, okay.
what an ugly sign.
Well, I mean, if it's the consensus of the commission that the wrong sign got approved tonight based on the photo, we can entertain a motion to reconsider. And
Well, I could have been the only one. So
if it was confusing, you can certainly make a motion to reconsider, and we can table it and have them come back in front of you.
Well, it's disappointing compared to what we originally approved.
And I think it's more than that they went ahead, having gotten the sign approval, they went ahead and changed things, and there's no repercussion for changing it.
none whatsoever.
That's the thing that bothers me, that, it's not even a waste of their time, it's a waste of our time.
Like I said, if this particular sign is not what the commission thought it was voting on, you can certainly make a motion to reconsider and have it tabled for them to come back in front of you.
Again, I think it's futile to tell a petitioner who has spent money doing stuff that he needs to take his sign down right now until he gets an approved sign up. I mean, even something like that, for a new business that opens up, you just wouldn't do it. But I think a fine is in order for somebody that puts a sign up and doesn't ask for approval first.
Well, I mean, we certainly have the ability, because this is a new sign permit, to charge them again, because it's a new sign permit. It's going to be much more than $50. It's going to be hundreds of dollars. To issue a permit for this sign is going to be hundreds of dollars.
Can we get that money put into the sidewalk?
Does Marco's have a trademark sign? Do they have a different sign for every location?
That I don't know. I know that their original package had 4 sign options. The Plan Commission looked at them and said that the top left of those 4 was the one that...
Could we see those 4 again, please?
From a marketing point of view...
They came up with a 5th one and installed it?
From a marketing point of view, the one they put up is a better sign for that. These others are nice. They look better, but they're, for marketing ways, driving by, it'd be hard to read.
But that's not the point.
That's not the point.
That's not the
Right.
point.
I understand.
They just
Make a
categorically threw it in the village's face and said, we're going to change it, irrespective of what the village said. Now, the greater, to Commissioner Stylin's point, the greater issue here for this is that they did it, there's no retribution, and we need to do this, and we need some teeth behind it. And in addition, I think I believe that this should have come back to us in a type of workshop that you've done in other business, saying, here's what we have, here's what they've done, which direction should we take this? And that wasn't done either.
What's, if they made an application for the sign, what's it going to cost them? Roughly.
The ballpark, it's based on the square footage and the base and the electrical. 400, 300?
Is it a consensus of the board that we let it stand but make them pay for a new sign application?
As long as the money goes into the sidewalk fund, yeah.
Well, I just can't agree with Commissioner Rufato and Commissioner Stylen that fining them is the only remedy or a good remedy. Really, if we're not happy with the sign, the remedy is put up the sign that we approved, or come before us and get approval for the one you are putting up. I mean, that's what happened with the dental place on Milwaukee Avenue.
Mike, would you make them take the sign down today until the issue is resolved?
No.
See, that's the point. I mean, you wouldn't punish them.
I wouldn't punish them today, but I mean, if I felt that strongly, that new sign is, just can't stand, and I want to go back to the one that we approved, to me, that's the remedy.
See, and I personally,
don't put up an unapproved sign. If you put up an unapproved sign, take it down. You didn't have approval for it. I mean, not necessarily take it down to the ground, but you made it a red sign, and bad example, because colors are, in the eye of the beholder, right? But you got approved for a red sign, and you painted a green sign. Paint it green, or paint it red as we approved. To me, that's the remedy, not to let people.
Unfortunately, I believe I agree with Chairman Maloney. I think the red sign will be a lot more visible. The white sign would have tended to wash out and wouldn't be readable over time. The red sign is probably the better sign for them. And I would approve that red sign. Obviously, I did tonight, but I still think they acted out of order. They put up a sign that they shouldn't have. They did something they shouldn't have.
Well, that's why I suggested charging them a new application, because it is a different sign. That way they stay in business, and it's in the way it's a fine.
And there's nothing in particular that has to be done to do that. They submitted a application. This is a new.
It's already been pre-approved.
It's a new sign. I believe we would be within the code as is to charge them a sign permit fee for it.
Every place I look.
What do they have on the building itself? Do they use
You
that,
can see it. There's another sign. It's that M.
the Pizza M logo?
I think it's just the M. You see it kind of hanging out back there.
Yeah, okay. So I was looking at their website. I mean, they're.
And I was just looking at their website also. Everything has that logo.
Yeah, there's
So, I mean,
there's a
The one
couple of
they've got up
photos
now?
that don't.
pardon me? That's,
No, it's got the M.
yeah, the big M is there.
Which is what they've got on the building.
I mean, I've looked at any number of places in here, and it doesn't look like that.
It looks to me like what they've done was they took an existing sign that was sitting in a warehouse,
Here's Facebook.
and they put it up instead of the sign that we approved. I have to go along with Mike. I think we should vote it down and say, put up the sign that you submitted for approval that we did in fact approve.
And paint the red pole back to being green?
Well,
Right.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, let's take some consensuses here and get.
All right. We got one is that they have to change the sign, reapply Well, what is it? What are we going to do? We're going to, number one, reapply for the current sign that they've got.
And that
And-
is, if that is the consensus, that is what has already happened.
Yeah, that's what they did
But if they
already.
paid you the $400?
The normal procedure would be to pay after the appearance approval. So we would, that option is
So
exactly
all
what
we
is
have to
happening.
do is bill them if you take that.
Yes.
And the other option is to make them reapply or make them go back to the sign we approved?
The other option would be a motion to reconsider,
Yep.
deny the sign, which leaves the old sign approval exactly as is. And they would have to abide by the original
So
approval.
the only consensus we need is, do we want to
Andrew,
reconsider?
Do we know why they didn't put the sign in that was approved?
Yeah, they made a mistake. It was a lot of different people doing a lot of different things, and that was the best explanation they could come up with, was
That sounds
They-
lame.
Yeah.
Just oversight.
Because otherwise, they'd found it in a warehouse, and they'll say, well, let's put this sign up. It says Marco's Pizza.
It took them, when we first alerted them to it, it took them a little while to figure out what happened. They had no, the people who were managing it did not know how the decision was even made, so.
But the construction guy knew how.
All right,
Somebody
I'm
obviously-
polling on reconsideration. Commissioner Burns,
I would not reconsider. I would live with the new sign and
let it go.
let it go.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yeah, I don't like that sign. I'd reconsider it.
to what?
Reconsider.
Okay, Commissioner Raffato,
I would reconsider also.
Commissioner Dorband.
I didn't hear Commissioner Rafato's,
I would reconsider it.
okay. I would reconsider.
Commissioner Stylen,
Oh, boy. I think what they put up is fine with a new monetary donation to the sidewalk fund.
Commissioner Schaaf,
Are you selling sidewalks or what?
Yes, yes.
Commissioner Schaaf,
I would reconsider.
and I would not, so it's 4-3 for reconsideration. So we all voted for it, so anyone can make a motion to reconsider?
I will make a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is this a call the roll?
So Commissioner Raffato made the motion, Commissioner Schaaf seconded. I vote, Commissioner Raffato votes yes. Commissioner Schaaf,
Yes.
Commissioner Burns,
No.
Commissioner Dorband,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Stylen,
Yes.
and Chairman Maloney.
No.
So
Carries.
we have a motion to reconsider, and the reconsideration then would be to make a motion on as presented. A positive would be to approve what was just approved tonight. A negative on that would be denying what was just approved tonight. So the motion to reconsider has now passed. We would need a motion on
Approving the
what is
sign.
actually being
Does it have to be separated from the consent agenda first, or?
It is the, let's see. And we will take it, move it off of the consent. What I would, there are two ways at this point to consider this. Make a motion as presented and vote it up or down. Or now that it is being reconsidered, table it to have them be here to talk about it.
Yeah, I think that was an option
If
all
we-
along anyway.
If we vote it down, do they still have to pay for a sign request?
If you vote it down, what would happen is our staff would contact them, tell them that the sign that the red sign that they put in has been denied, and they need to install the sign as approved. So if it is actually voted down, that's what would happen. If you table it, we tell them to come to the next voting meeting and talk about this.
I'll move that it be tabled.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion
Can I
made.
speak to the motion?
Go ahead.
Why isn't it still their option to redo the sign as we approved it previously? Just because we can reconsider approving this sign doesn't remove the fact that we approved the previous design?
They have that option.
Okay.
You're correct, they would have that option.
Okay. All right, the motion's on the floor to
Any other
table.
discussion?
That requires a vote, right?
That's correct.
You can voice vote on a table if you want.
Vote, okay.
Okay. Those in favor of tabling?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed to tabling?
No.
One opposed. So the motion is, the sign application is tabled, and
Leaving them options.
Can I ask why you're saying no, Jim?
Because I think we should just vote it down right now and move on, and have them put the new sign in. That's why I
Thank you
voted.
for saying that,
Sure.
because is that something we want to talk about?
Well, no, I think that was one of the options, was to vote on it or table it, and there was a motion to table it, so.
Which would give them the option of coming in explaining why they
now.
Or put it back.
this way.
Or put it back
Or
the
put
way
it
it
back,
was.
right.
Right.
Yeah, if they install it, the sign that we approved, they don't have to do anything. Otherwise, they come back to us.
Right.
Do we have to do anything else now, Andrew, on this?
No, it's on the table.
Okay.
It's been tabled.
Okay, now, where the heck were we?
It's still my turn.
Okay, there we are.
We do it.
Have we gotten to 9 o'clock yet, guys?
Good there.
I think the third string players are now in the game.
Go ahead.
Advanced Auto. I seem to remember there was a great deal of discussion on whether they were going to use the original brick of the building or if they were going to have to replace the brick with some other brick, I think in front of it or something. But the way I understood what they were going to do was to use the brick of the building, and now all I see is red all over every place. I mean, it's a red auto zone thing on the top of the building, and I'm not sure there's much brick that they were going to leave exposed or put. What did we really approve? Do we know what we approved?
Well, wasn't the brick damaged underneath
Well,
there, and they were going
they
to?
didn't
They
know.
were worried
They
about
didn't
it.
know at the time what
Yeah.
was under there.
Right.
They said when we
The
pull off the
approval-
wood,
The
we'll see if
approval
the
was
brick
flexible
is
for that
salvageable.
reason. Right? The approval was flexible for that reason. So they submitted a drawing of a brickless building with the condition that they could keep the brick. So they submitted a brand new masonry building, with the condition they could keep the old brick.
Or reface it or do
The
something.
refacing had the stipulation that it would be the same brick as the sign. So it was either the brick area was match the sign or existing brick.
So I expected to see a lot of brick on this building, and now I see a lot of Advanced Auto Parts, big sign on the front of the building.
Which I think we approved.
Yeah.
And then they bricked up the openings. So it is all brick.
It is all brick.
It is all brick. I mean, the openings for, and the windows for Ace Hardware are now bricked up. I think what we were talking about to Mr. Jennings' point was that when they took off the facade, the
white
wood,
stuff, yeah.
the wood, if the brick was bad, they were going to go with a,
New brick.
Up there, I believe they had a fascia.
they had a fascia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will double check.
Yeah, if you could send me the pictures of what they proposed, because I sure don't remember that amount of red being all over everywhere.
We'll go back to the approval ordinance and see
Looked tight.
what it was.
You don't?
Anything else? Just on.
No, Well, is there something we could do for about 20 more minutes?
No, we have to get Mr. Schaaf.
Okay,
Thank you.
Mr. Schaaf.
The first thing is I won't be here for, if you have an August 16th meeting, I will be unable to attend. Second is I looked at the July 12th minutes and we were talking about advanced auto, that big sign. And one of the commissioners asked if that was within the code. And I just, my question is, Andrew, did you happen to check that?
We have one other aspect of the code to check, something that hasn't come up previously. The sign, we went back to the sign approval. It was approved as quite a large sign. And what we had said at that last meeting was we can take a look at this sign to see what about it in particular is out of character. Is it the combination? A lot of times when you see a sign that is that large, it's on a pylon. So our preliminary thought on this is it's just so low to the ground.
Right.
It's the combination of square footage and the height that makes it seem so unusual.
But if you
That
look
doesn't mean that it's not within the code. So I think the question is there something about this sign that should cause us to look at the code? So that's one. And then the other part that we're looking at right now is ensuring that the vision triangle is met. If it meets the height, if it meets the setbacks, if it meets everything else, just as a, crossing T's and dotting I's.
Yeah, but the way you wrote it in the minutes, you said you were going to see if it was within the code.
It appears that everything so far is within the code. We're going to double check the vision triangle, but it seems like everything's within the code. It is a large sign that's low to the ground.
Right. That's all I had. Thank you.
Okay. The only thing I've got is I've emailed all of you on your Wheeling address a thing on the Village of DeForest, Wisconsin Committee of the Whole. You can take a look at that. Basically, they call it a workshop. They call it Committee of the Whole, but it's a workshop. But anyway, give you an idea what that is. That's all I've got.
Is there a consensus on whether or not we should attempt to meet next week?
I thought we had a whole bunch. Yeah.
That's what we're doing. We are meeting next week. Without Mr. Schaaf.
Okay.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?